I was just going through your Twitter timeline and some of your interviews. I think you're quite a philosopher. You like just quoting from Socrates and Nietzsche and James Dean and all sorts of people.
Of course, I think in last few years I've realized that all opinions I had, right. There's no truth to it, or they are very abstract.
Right.
And then also interacting with Diwakar and Shekhar over the last 1.5 to 2 years.
Right, Shekhar Kapoor.
Kapoor is when I realized, okay, so we have these strong opinions because
right.
of what we believe in, but just because we don't know so many things about so many things is why we are so, we are holding on to those opinions. Right. So I started opening up, maybe, that's why.
I watched Kedarnath. The confusion about the religious identity in a way, and or be the class divide. There's a lot of subtlety in your performance. Would you like to talk about that?
I think it's very recently that I realized one thing, that we all act all the time. I'm not saying act in terms of that we lie all the time, but I'm saying that we generally act all the time. And as an actor, what I used to do in films is that we are told not to act, make it natural. Well, that's a great way to go. But then I thought my characters, just like me, could also act in front of my co-characters. So when you think like that, then you try to cut down your emotions so that the other co-character does not. If you don't want to, don't want them to know, then you're cutting down on emotions, and what you're left with on your face are just those small nuances.
We've seen quite a few actors who played cricketers or various other sports. Some have been convincing, some maybe have not been that convincing. But it looks like 100% convincing that the way the helicopter shot is going is something brilliant. So if you can talk about the learning part, that hunger for learning that Dhoni has.
First thing, the hunger for learning. I can totally connect with that. I have started from nothing, absolutely nothing. It's not even zero, it's like minus. Because I was doing something else. There was a momentum to become an engineer, and suddenly I discovered this thing that I really like. And I start doing it. But at the same time, as a kid, I also had many dreams, like common dreams. I'll buy my own house and I'll buy this car, it's a luxury car. So these things were there. And now when I started following my dream, in the sense of changing my career, I started earning money to an extent that I could actually afford all these things.
What one expects from a period movie is in terms of the color, but there's a lot of thrill element into it. That I think the pace, at least on the promos, it's very, very fast paced. And you're saying that it's primarily catering to the youthful audience.
Of course, I don't think it has changed since last 60 years. I think the most fundamental thing that should be there in a film, especially of this genre, is if you can sustain the idea of what's going to happen next. So that's the first thing that as a filmmaker, you get to learn. Okay, this is something that should be consistent in a film. So Sharadindu's stories, all the 31 and 32, it's got a style, and he is able to maintain that thing. So everything that he has done with the script, everything, all the things that you were saying, that okay, there's a Japanese invasion happening, there is Chinese guys, there are American GIs in the film, there is an opium trade in the film,
right.
There is a Calcutta underworld very thriving at that point of time, there is Indian National Army. So these are the things that were there in Calcutta at that point of time. Also because of Sharadindu, what he has written, so he has kept the essence alive. He has kind of created that consistent what if, what next thing in the film. I think it doesn't change whether it's 1940s or it's a story of 70s or 2050.
If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be?
Mr. Gandhi.
Why?
I find his ideologies very, very exciting, more exciting than what I thought as a kid when I was reading what he did. So now I understand its value, just not in moral and moral sense or ethics sense, but also in terms of getting people together and making them good individually and as a team.
एक शब्द में जवाब, लखना और सुशांत सिंह राजपूत की एक कॉमन आदत.
डरते नहीं है
राजपूत.
इसलिए नहीं, इसलिए कि पता है कि क्या चाहिए और वो क्यों चाहिए. तो फिर अगर ये दोनों पता होता तो डर कम लगता है.
For you to just get into a period drama, such a early stage of your career, how difficult was it for you? Because apart from the fact that there is a subtext, there's a lot of layers around it, the sort of matchbox that you're using, the sort of cigarettes that you're using, the sort of almost everything that you're using. And it must have been tough to just remember everything.
That is the thing, I'll tell you what. It was challenging when I thought about doing the film.
Right.
But then just because after having so many conversations with Diwakar, I was so sure that for these next 4 months I'll do the prep for the film and we'll get to know about the film and the character.
Right.
But I can take that leap of faith. I can improvise, I can do all sort of things that I feel like doing while I'm acting, and Diwakar will take care of it. He'll tell me that no, do not do this. This is where you're going wrong. So just because of that faith, was I able to perform like this, and I feel that this is the most, as I've told you, this is the most honest I have ever been as an actor since 8 years of my acting career.
Does it bother you as a creative person that when certain things are inferred, जिसका कोई ऐसे आपने भी कहा कॉन्टेक्स्ट मिक्स हो जाता है, जिसका कोई फंसाने में कोई जिक्र भी नहीं था, जैसे मैंने कुछ जो चीज़ें मैंने पढ़ी जब ये सारा कि उत्तराखंड में बैन हो गई है, एंड आई रेड दैट सेम स्टेटमेंट इन सेवरल ट्वीट्स बाय लॉट ऑफ पीपल कि ये बात एकदम बिल्कुल गलत थी कि प्रलय इस वजह से आई कि एक मुस्लिम फैमिली को केदारनाथ से जाने के लिए बोल दिया गया. ये तो कोई जिक्र भी नहीं था उसका. तो दैट वाज नेवर.
वही मैं कह रहा हूँ कि
जो इन्वायरमेंट का आपने जो बोला था कि भाई ओवर कमर्शलाइजेशन नहीं होना चाहिए, उसका तो कोई जिक्र ही नहीं हो रहा है.
देखिए वही जैसे आपने ये बात को स्पेसिफिकली कहा, सो नाउ आई अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. आई कैन गिव यू अ स्पेसिफिक आंसर टू दिस. एज अ सोसाइटी वी डोंट एक्नॉलेज नुआंस एंड दैट गेट्स मैनिफेस्टेड इन डिफरेंट मेजर प्रॉब्लम्स दैट वी हैव टुडे. इट इज द सेम थिंग. वी डोंट सी दैट देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ कोरिलेशन एंड अ कॉजेशन. चीजें साथ में अक्सर होती हैं. अगर ऐसा होता है तो ये 2-3 चीजें साथ में होती हैं और वो होंगी. देयर इज अ पैटर्न. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये चीज ये कॉज कर रही है. So there is a difference between correlation and causation.
To the failure part of it, he goes through a lot of failures. He goes through a lot of talk that his contemporaries like Kaif and other people they've reached where they've reached. But that failure definitely must have been extremely important for him, for just building up that hunger for achieving what he finally achieved.
Like failures, it's extremely important. I think I would value a massive failure more than a mediocre success. We are taught to be so careful. We are taught to not fail. You have to succeed. That's fine. You want to succeed, you please succeed. But being careful is the problem. You need to learn how not to be careful. You need to try different things. Only then, once in like 100 times or 200 times, you'll hit on something that's completely fresh. And that's going to change everything for everybody. So it's extremely important to fail.
3 books according to you everyone must read.
School books, because that's how you and I think people miss out on religious texts these days. I would just tell them to also read that, so as to see that there could be striking similarities between what we study now and those texts written then. Those are different layers of cryptography. It's like condensed metaphors, but if you want to see, you can see these things. So that is very fascinating. So they should also read. And the third thing that I think everyone should read is coding. Just like one language is required for any career, like doctor, you need to know English or Hindi or anything like that. In 3 to 5 years, everyone will be required to know coding.
Do you think that it's important for people to realize that just fighting over trivial issues like religion and that मैं तुमसे बेहतर हूँ और मेरी बात माननी चाहिए, do you think it's high time people realize that?
High time से भी अगर कुछ ज़्यादा immediate time हो सकता है, तो वो time है अभी. Because this is for sure. Our ignorance cannot stop what is inevitable. और मैं जो inevitability की बात कर रहा हूँ वो है जो अभी technology से भी आएगी. आपको मैं एक fact देता हूँ. 65% of the kids who are going to kindergarten this year will end up, if they ever end up having a job, will end up working for technologies that are still not invented yet. तो जब ऐसा होता है तो schools को भी पता नहीं होता कि वो पढ़ाएं क्या. तो अभी हम ऐसे स्टेट पे हैं कि हमें पता ही नहीं है कि हमें पढ़ाना भी क्या चाहिए. तो हम कितना अच्छा पढ़ते हैं और आपस में हमारी रैंकिंग क्या है, ये तो इममटीरियल हो गया. मैं आपको पूरे ग्लोबल प्रॉब्लम बता रहा हूँ. हमें नया नॉलेज स्ट्रक्चर बना रहे हैं. एडुकेशन का, जिसमें हम इमोशनल क्वेश्चन पे ज़्यादा ध्यान दे रहे हैं, जिसमें हम बच्चों को ये बता रहे हैं कि अननोन सिचुएशंस में कैसे डील करें, क्योंकि हमेशा अननोन सिचुएशंस ही होंगे अब, क्योंकि अब रेट ऑफ चेंज इंक्रीज हो रहा है। पहले चेंज कांस्टेंट था, अब रेट ऑफ चेंज इंक्रीज हो रहा है, तो हमें ही नहीं पता कि क्या होने वाला है। सो फॉर दैट योर इमोशनल स्टेबिलिटी इज़ वेरी वेरी रिक्वायर्ड। सो इमोशनल क्वेश्चन पे ज़्यादा ध्यान दिया जा रहा है। कोडिंग सिखाई जा रही है बच्चों को, क्योंकि अगर आपको कोडिंग नहीं आती 5 साल के अंदर, अभी जैसे मैं कुछ भी हो सकता हूँ, आप कुछ भी हो सकते हैं, जैसे हमें अंग्रेज़ी आती है, हमें मैथमेटिक्स आता है, वर्किंग नॉलेज है जिससे हम लोग बात कर सकते हैं। 5 साल के बाद कोडिंग वैसी चीज़ हो जाएगी। और हमारा इग्नोरेंस, हमें नहीं पता है, लोग इस बारे में बात नहीं करते हैं, विल नॉट स्टॉप इट फ्रॉम कमिंग। अगर लोग इसके बारे में पता, सबके पास गूगल है, गूगल पे जाएं, पता करें, ये सारी चीज़ें हो रही हैं, ये होंगी नहीं, हो रही हैं। एंड इट हैज़ ऑलवेज बीन लाइक दिस। फ्यूचर इज़ ऑलरेडी हियर, इट इज़ जस्ट अनइवनली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड। उसको पूरा आने में थोड़ा टाइम लगता है, लेकिन आ जाएगा, आज नहीं तो कल आ ही जाएगा, क्योंकि इट इज़ इनोवेटेबल, इट इज़ मैथमेटिकल, it is that precise.
I believe while you were acting, you just close your mobile for I think months, and people can't access you, and you're not invited to parties and events. That's what you've said in one of the interviews.
Yeah.
So for an actor, it is important to just totally get away from all the communication whatsoever.
I think whatever it takes, you have to have that frame of mind where you can try to create something new. So I mean, like, there can be different process to do the same thing. This was important for this particular film because the era that we are talking about is 1940s,
Right.
and there was no internet, there was no phones, there was no mineral water, there was no automatic cars. So all the things that I could have done to start with, to break the pattern that we normally live in, I started with that, and then I worked on the characters and other nuances of the film.